Ay, ay, ay. I really, really don't like Spectrum Internet. It is so bad. It is so bad. And then for whatever reason, every night around either like midnight or 1 a.m., the internet just goes down. And that's what just happened there. We were live at the top of the hour. And everything went down for like 30 seconds, which is pretty unfortunate for us. So I had to make a quick thought. It's like, do I just pull the plug or do I just say YOLO and drop a second part? So we'll do a second part. If it goes down again, then it goes down again. But man, how inconvenient, bro. I swear Spectrum has been the bane of my existence, the Desmond Bane of my existence, all for the last year. And where I live, it is the only option I have for high speed purposes. And it really has me strongly considering relocating to a different city just to not have to deal with them anymore. And it's such a helpless situation because call and complain, but you can't be like, I'm gonna cancel, because no, you're not. It's so bad. Anyway, sorry about that, chat. So we'll start from the top. Grizzlies at the Hornets. I don't know at what point it like kicked me off. I just when I looked over and it was gone. Grizzlies are 7-point favorites here. So I do like the thought of John Morant. He is coming up with a top 3 projection for me right now. Projections are kind of made with a little bit more with a ceiling vibe in mind. But I do think there is more vulnerability in that lineup since they're pretty healthy. Desmond Bane, Dylan Brooks, Jaren Jackson, and everyone pretty much has a plus matchup on the court against the Hornets. So I think its floor is not as high as I would want it to be, but its ceiling is pretty doggone high. Steven Adams on DraftKings 5,400. I feel like there's been twice in the last month I've looked up in my single entries on FanDuel, and Steven Adams was in the top lineup. And lately he's been on a rebound tear. I saw a funny quote from him after his last game. I think it was against Sacramento. And they had asked him, hey, how are you so good at offensive rebounds? And he said, it's because my team sucks at shooting, basically. So I thought it was hilarious. 23, 21, 17, 14 rebounds. Just absolutely nuts with it. And we go to advanced stats on Steven Adams. He has a 17.2% offensive rebound rate, which I haven't checked, but I feel like that's got to be the highest in the league with any type of sample size. So just insane. And offensive rebounds for him could either result in easy putbacks or assists. And you see for a center, he's averaging over 2 assists per game, upwards of, and has had 3 in 3 straight games. So against a team like the Charlotte Hornets, I think Steven Adams makes a lot of sense today. The Hornets are better offensive rebounder than I give him credit for, but still a very attackable team. And DVP wise, they give up amongst the most points in the league per game, the most to opposing center. So really good spot for John Morant, but like I said, it's really, a really good spot for Steven Adams, but it's really a good spot for just about everybody. But a $1,300 discrepancy in price between FanDuel and DraftKings makes them look like a more appealing click on DraftKings. So I'm in on Steven Adams. I'm also curious to see what kind of correction we get from PrizePicks on Steven Adams. 14 rebounds, 1.5 turnovers, 16.5 rebounds and assists, and he's live to clear 16.5 rebounds. So I guess that's that's giving us that 14 rebounds is the prop for Steven Adams. Guys, like peak Rudy Gobert was like 12.5, 13. This is an insane rebound stretch for him. Another thing I would keep an eye on for Steven Adams is sometimes his first half fantasy point prop is something I like to get behind. So do like some Steven Adams. Do like basically everyone on the Grizzlies. I'll have to be responsible because I know my projections are just going to love everyone. Points per dollar. Desmond Bane's giving me a 30 bomb. Get a 30 bomb out of Dylan Brooks. 40 plus out of Jaren Jackson. Steven Adams. All looking pretty doggone good. So I might have to set a rule to maybe like get no more than 2 Grizzlies in the lineup. Maybe 3. We'll see. Let's see. What am I looking for? Look at blocks per game allowed for the Hornets. The Hornets allow the most blocks per game in basketball. Uh-oh. John Morant has entered the chat. Or not John. I call everyone John Morant. Jaren Jackson has entered the chat. Jaren Jackson, 3.2 blocks per game. And now gets the most block-friendly matchup in basketball. So, huge news for him. If you imply him for his average, cool. That's 9 fantasy points off the rip for FanDuel and PrizePicks scoring. And then if you expect an above-average block performance, maybe get 4 or 5. Yeah, that's a big-time increase to his fantasy projection. So I like that. I'm liking all things Grizzlies here. Who do we run it back with? LaMelo Ball looking like the more obvious click here. I guess it's worth going to the Wowie and just trying to paint a picture of how the Hornets have operated in the absence of Oubre and now the absence of Gordon Hayward. I can't imagine there's a whole bunch of minutes here, but we'll see what we got. Yeah, my bad, Ariel. I appreciate you guys figuring out that we went live again. Literally at the stroke of midnight. Internet drop for maybe a minute. It's a Spectrum thing, man. It literally drives me insane, but I can't let it get to me because there's nothing I can do about it. Literally. Last time I've been battling with Spectrum for a year. A couple months ago, I was like, hey, I pay for 1 gig down, like a gig downstream and like 100 up. What do I usually get is, I think it's usually like, if I'm lucky on a good day, I'm getting 500 down, 30 up, which is absolutely not what we pay for. But I just don't even complain. Actually, I don't think I should do a speed test on the internet, on a live stream, but give away my IP address. But I don't even complain as long as I can just use it. But then the stability of it is so bad, particularly the upstream has been a constant nuisance for me. Some days I'll get between 2 and 7 upstream, which is unusable for streaming, for gaming, for just about anything. And where I live, people don't realize that their upstream sucks because the average person is not using upstream like that. They just get the downstream. And I barked at Spectrum about it for a year, and it's such a massive company that no one actually cares, first of all, because they're just contracted employees reading scripts, and 2, no one actually believes you. They just think you're a know-it-all, customer. Like this guy doesn't unplug it, plug it back in, it should work. That type of troubleshooting. So I just don't even like to deal with it. And then last time I was like, send a guy out here. I'm telling you it's not working. They're like, it looks fine on our end. I was like, send a guy. They're like, we're going to have to charge you. I was like, I'm not paying. Send a guy out. They send out a tech, his supervisors, everything. They're expecting like a fight or something. And he comes out here and he checks the reads. I was like, dude, I want you to do 5 speed tests over the course of 20 minutes. I said, I guarantee you don't get the same numbers twice. And sure enough, he didn't. And he went out to the poll and he's like, yep, they're going to have to fix it from the poll, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, it could take them up to 6 weeks. And I was like, whatever, as long as it's documented that this is a problem. They've never fixed it. And it's just like, it's literally out of my hands. So it's a frustrating thing. So I apologize that it's now like interfering with the stream end. It's usually a nighttime issue anyway, so it's more of a Twitch problem. But since we're bringing back these nighttime YouTube shows, I don't want this to be a consistent problem. So we'll see. All right. No Hornets side. So we were in the middle. I'm sorry, chat. That frustrates me. It's just like I pay like $120 a month for that crap. LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier on, Oubre, Hayward off. 30% usage rate for LaMelo, 27% assist rate, 25% on Terry Rozier. So if we're gonna run this one back, and look for some guys to keep this game competitive and maybe just take advantage of increased usage, I think LaMelo Ball is the most obvious beneficiary with a Florida upside worth chasing. He's appropriately priced. I think all these 9 to 10.5K point guards are just kind of there, within 8 fantasy points. So it's going to be a little bit of luck involved. And I'll just kind of play it by correlating lineups, but also leveraging the ownership. And I don't have ownership projections the night before, so we'll see. But that's obviously the guy that I want to get to. And then maybe a little bit of Rozier on FanDuel makes a little bit more sense, right? The way that the Grizzlies defense works is it does usher people to take more shots from behind the arc. 46.1 points in a paint per game allowed. Gotta believe that's top 3 in basketball. Let's run that. It's not top 3. Memphis. Oh, I'm sorry. It's top 3 in basketball. So it's kind of a funnel defense where they're pushing shot volume outside, and against Memphis, they're giving up a top 10 amount of three-pointer attempts. Not necessarily three-point made, but three-point attempts, or three-point frequency, rather. 40.5% of their opponent's shots are three-pointers, which equates to 36 three-point attempts per game, 13 made. So a 36% field goal percentage, which isn't terrible to attack with. So who would we look at on the Hornets to take advantage of that funnel defense? Well, LaMelo takes the most threes per game on the team, and Terry Rozier's right behind him. Rozier's only hitting at a 31% clip. LaMelo's hitting at a respectable 37%. So I think the way that the metrics are game scripting this one is if it does stay close, it looks like LaMelo Ball would have to contribute with a lot of real points, and it looks like the most likely way for him to contribute is with the 3 ball here. So we'll be looking at him. I would imagine his 3-point prop is probably going to be set at like 3.5. So maybe it's not something I want to attack there, but I do think the matchup is kind of creating that pathway to success. So a lot to like from this game. I'm loving all the Grizzlies. Give me some LaMelo. And then anyone else to benefit from Gordon Hayward's absence? What is Jalen McDaniels? Jalen McDaniels shoots 37% from 3. His volume obviously not as high, but maybe we do get an increase in volume opportunity here. And because his field goal percentage is as high, maybe he is a sneaky guy to seek out for some point props. So a decent bit to like here. We'll move on from this game. San Antonio Spurs taking on the New York Knicks. Project starting 5. No, we don't have to do that. Spurs at the Knicks. What are we looking at for totals? 229 with a 9.5 point spread in favor of the Knicks. So the door is open for a potential lopsided game. The Knicks news report, we have Derrick Rose questionable, Obi Toppin questionable, RJ Barrett still out, and then Devin Vassell's on the report for the Spurs. So let's get updated on that. Starting with San Antonio and Devin Vassell. Questionable. No actual words on that. And then for the Knicks, Derrick Rose questionable with left knee contusion. Barrett down, and Obi Toppin's doubtful. All right. So matchup-wise, there's a lot to like on the Knicks. Emmanuel Quickley, still a guy that we're liking quite a bit, points per minute and points per dollar. Jalen Brunson being back into the thick of things maybe is enough to take the top off of Brunson's ceiling, but he's still somebody I think, especially if Derrick Rose is going to be down, could contribute 35-plus minutes of basketball, and Tom Thibodeau's minutes are pretty stable, sometimes even in the face of a blowout, right? They beat the Suns by 20. I think at one point they were up by like 40, and we still got big minutes out of the Knicks here. So Jalen Brunson, 35, 39 minutes. Quickly was the guy that started this search. He played 36, 40, 43 minutes, so 36 minutes in that game as well. His results did take, like I said, the top came off because of Brunson's return, but the double-digit shot attempts were there, and this matchup is pretty good. So it's a good matchup for every Knick here, and all the Knicks project for 30-plus minutes. So couldn't really talk you off of anyone in particular. It's just one of those spots where we got to deal with the potential blowout. And we did see Randall without Brunson take on the Spurs, I believe, in Texas last week. So something to keep an eye on. No Spurs are screaming at me from this far out, but I do think Trey Jones, Devin Vassell at these prices have a range of outcomes of 30-plus. Get me over 30 fantasy point game, so I would be there. If Vassell was down, trickle effect, Keldon Johnson gets more usage, Trey Jones maybe that much more stable, and then I'm really not that enthralled with spinning the wheel, making a deal on guys like Romeo Langford and Josh Richardson, but you could if you wanted to. What else we got? We got Raptors hosting the Bucks. Bucks night 2 of a back-to-back. Have to go through customs. Nothing came out as far as rest, but anytime the Bucks are on a back-to-back, and have to go international, perhaps the door is open for some rest. Last night, Drew Holiday did not start. Played limited off the bench. Jevon Carter started, and then Giannis went off. So did Brook Lopez. So did Bobby Portis against the Raptors here. This is a pace down spot, and the Raptors do have a little bit of lankiness to maybe make it a harder night than usual for Giannis. So a couple things I'm watching is, one, to make sure that there is no funkiness with what is it, Budenholzer? And rest, and 2 is just what kind of ownership does Giannis pick up on night 2 of back-to-back. I think on this slate, stud ownership gets more diluted because of how many options there are, so I don't think it's worth overthinking, but I do think the matchup is a rough one. This one maybe would be worth checking out. Giannis' success against we'll just do Siakam, not necessarily the Raptors, because Siakam represents one of the lankier defenders. So I'll go Giannis Antetokounmpo, DKP by game log versus Pascal Siakam last 10 games. So 270s in the last 10, a couple 60s. Yeah, some of this probably has Middleton in. So it's never an end-all be-all. But if you take the median outcome, which is, let's give him 60. I think 60 becomes fadeable on a slate like this at 12K. So I can't, and that's about what the projection says: 62 on FanDuel, 60 on DK. So I don't see him becoming a priority. If there's enough value that where studs and scrubs is unavoidable, sure, we'll get to him. But I think there's enough going that I could see him being single-digit ownership, maybe even 15% as a cap, and I'm fine with that. So. Nobody else on the Bucks. Give me the warm and fuzzies. Brook Lopez, big game last night, like I said. Sure, he looks like a get me over 30. Same with Bobby Portis on the Raptors side. A lot of minutes there. We saw Gary Trent remain in the starting lineup with Fred VanVleet back. Doesn't really change much for me. Everyone plays minutes, but Gary Trent still has a $1,500 discrepancy between his DK price and his FanDuel price, so maybe he continues this little scoring barrage that he's on. And against the Milwaukee Bucks typically restrict points in the paint and funnels more scoring from outside the perimeter, and that's where Gary Trent lives. 10, 11 points via the 3 ball, 39, 40 minutes. So yeah, maybe that's somebody we look to for points. Wonder where his point prop would be at. If it's less than 18.5, I think it's worth taking a look at, assuming that he's still going to start. We don't have those props up yet, but I do think it makes a lot of sense to expect him to have a decent shot volume. And then teams are starting to treat Scotty Barnes like he was Ben Simmons. I was watching some film earlier. When Barnes was anywhere near the perimeter, defenders were just backing away because they didn't expect him to shoot. If you look at Barnes, he's not shooting for much volume at all from downtown, and he doesn't threaten a lot of teams here. So we might start seeing that become more of a storyline game to game here. And it also makes me less likely to expect him to have a big scoring game. So I'm looking a lot at Gary Trent as far as a guy that I think could be fun for point props, right? VanVleet at 7,300 on DK with the type of minutes that we probably expect him to play, has a shot at 40. Siakam's still a guy that I think per minute and really is just overall undervalued by the public, even with Fred VanVleet back. His production has been nuts. I don't think this is the spot where I want to tap into him having another massive game, but I talked about it on that last slate. Is I thought if people saw VanVleet rolled back in, that people would just completely abandon ship on Siakam, and I don't necessarily think that's the right approach. He still offered 25 plus real points. The other peripherals didn't quite add up to him having a great day, but his per minute production, his overall usage, and his assist rate has still been there. And on that last game, I actually had action on his assist prop. I think it was like five and a half, and he got me to 6. So, or Scott got me to 7 rather. So that might be another way I attack Siakam in terms of trying to make money from him tonight. If I don't play him much in DFS, which I probably won't, I'll probably see if I can get an attackable assist line, and that would correlate well with Gary Trent's scoring prop, right? So just thinking out loud on that. Rockets at the Pelicans. We got big news from the Pelicans yesterday. Zion Williamson's going to be out a couple weeks. He's joining Larry Nance on the out list. Also joining Brandon Ingram on the out list. And this is going to be a spot where we have to divvy up and distribute 20-plus real points per game, right? He's Zion representing 26 real points per game. Ingram, who's been out, represents 21 points per game. Both these guys well over 26% usage rates. Both these guys representing over 30 minutes. So we do have to divvy that up. Does it all go to CJ McCollum? Probably not. I have a hunch on Jonas Valanciunas today. But let's see if we can figure out or maybe come up with some stronger leans here. That's more than just gut calls, right? So we'll go to the Pelicans. And on top of all that, it's the Houston Rockets. We like picking on the Rockets, right? Let's put McCollum on the court. I feel like I'm gonna put McCollum and Valanciunas on the court. And we're going to take off Zion. There may not be much minutes to go off of, but whatever we do have, we'll use, right? Nance. 28% usage rate on McCollum, 26% on JVal. Just 214 minutes to go off of. 1.17 DKP per minute for JVal. $1.25 on McCollum. And McCollum's looking at almost a 30% assist rate. So those are the two guys that stand out immediately. Najee Marshall, 0.9 fantasy point per minute in this split. Less minutes. And then we get into a who's who of who's that. Herb Jones, over a fantasy point per minute, but just 66 minutes of sample size there. So there's not going to be many people, I think, on the Pelicans that won't project decently well if and when we give them about 30 minutes. And most of these guys are 5K or less on average. I think all of the middle guys are. With Larry Nance down, let's go pull up the Pelicans rotation. With Larry Nance down, I guess we're looking at guys like Jackson Hayes and Guillermo Hernan-Gomez. Jackson Hayes saw 4 minutes of total play time in that last game. Zion played 36 plus the overtime. Larry Nance played. So every one of Larry Nance's. Oh wait, that was from November 2nd. Excuse me, I forgot we went all the way back for the Mike Muscala query. But a lot of Larry Nance's minutes are direct backup to JVal. So when JVal doesn't have that, I think that opens up his floor. And then JVal in that last outing, did he foul out? Yeah, he fouled out in 28 minutes against Joel Embiid. That'll happen. Game prior against the Sixers, that's the Sixers game right there. And then against the Pelicans. Wait, did JVal foul out in back-to-back games? He did. He fouled out in 22 minutes against Memphis. So, oh my God. So I'm trying to research my way into JVal, and I think I am. So, all right. So let's read between the lines here. I think there's a possibility that Jackson Hayes could just straight up start with Zion out, but it's not a guarantee because they have some bodies. But I'm trying to figure out what to do with JVal. Assuming Jonas Valanciunas is not in foul trouble. First of all, who is this foul trouble benefiting? It looks like it's immediately benefiting Willy Hernan-Gomez. Every one of Willy Hernan-Gomez's minutes in the last game was immediate sub-in for JVal. And Jackson Hayes was playing opposite Zion, essentially 1-to-1. Not completely, but a lot. So, man, do we think Jonas Valanciunas can stay out of foul trouble against Şengün, Jabari Smith, Usman Garuba, Bruno Fernando? Would hope so, because I think there's a potential ticking time bomb there, because per minute, 36 fantasy points, 28 minutes, 22 and 22. Like, the per minute production's nuts. And now we take off Zion, and he's given us, almost a 1.2 fantasy point per minute. He has a real explosion spot here. Maybe, I don't know. I wonder how sharp their field's going to be on this. Maybe the field looks at just the minutes and they're pessimistic about his usage, and they don't give due diligence or due credence to the foul trouble, or maybe they just say, oh, he's too foul prone, I can't trust him, blah blah blah. But I think there's a real ceiling we're chasing at 6,300 on DraftKings, 6,600 on FanDuel in this matchup. What was the total? We don't have a total here, but we do have a 7-point spread in favor of the Pelicans, even with the Zion news. Is that true? Man, I feel like Rockets have been scrappy. That's crazy. Looks like some sites have a 223.5 total, so not a crazy total. But anyway, it's fair to like McCollum, J-Val immediately, and I think all the role players from the Pelicans make a lot of sense as well. So that's where I'm at there. On the Rocket side, same slate, different thing, same slate. KPJ, if you get there, you get there. 40 plus fantasy points. Feels like a high-low night at the guard investment spot, so makes him a little bit more lucrative, I guess, the thought-wise. 6,600 on Jalen Green on DK. That continues to project decently well if you're just happy with mid-30 fantasy point contributions. 35, 34, 35, 41. I think that's a healthy look. 44.5 fantasy points in 38 minutes against the Pelicans last time. So I think there is some meat on the bone at the price is what I'm getting to. Eric Gordon, revenge game if you're into that. Sub 5K, Jabari Smith. All these guys are like, put them in the blender. Sure, if they fall, they fall. But I want to be probably really limited on overall Rockets exposure. But the Pelicans, I think we can get to pretty aggressively. And I also think it would be easy to attack the Pelicans with correlated rules in Fantasy Cruncher for 150. For instance, like Guillermo Hernan-Gomez, he'll probably project decently well minute-wise and fantasy-wise. Early on, I got him for like almost 30 fantasy points. I'm going to have to put some logic on that. But looking at the minute rotation, it looks like all of his minutes are directly opposite J-Val. So it probably stands to reason that I don't want lineups with Jonas Valanciunas and Willy Hernan-Gomez. So that's an easy rule to accomplish that not happening, is put them in the same group and at most one of these two. So multiple ways to skin a cat. This game is 1 hour after the first set of games tip off. So hopefully we'll have that lineup before the main slate locks, but we'll see. Nets at the Bulls. What are we dealing with here news-wise? Markieff Morris, Royce O'Neal, GTD. Royce O'Neal means more, I guess, for us in terms of minute projections. 30-plus minutes is a lot to fill. We saw Seth Curry fill in for him in that last game. Was pretty efficient in the minutes that he did run. And then we've got Andre Drummond on the GTD list, joining Lonzo Ball, Tony Bradley, and Javonte Green. Those three are all out. Let's go look at the injury news for... let's start with Chicago at the top. Drummond's probable, so that saves that. And then the other one was Brooklyn. That's also at the top. Royce O'Neal is probable. So is Markieff. So everything, what you see is what you get. Total for this one. What time is it? 12:30. Anybody out there watching Wrestle Kingdom in an hour and a half? That should be fun. 235.5 total. That's a total. Okay. 4.5 point spread. In some spots, 5-point spread in favor of the Brooklyn Nets. So if you can get the Brooklyn Nets in a competitive basketball game, it certainly makes sense to look at Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. Those are always going to be tier 3 guys. Where they fall for me. Don't really see myself getting to anyone here with any aggressiveness or high levels of confidence. Kind of the same on the Bulls side. Levine, DeRozan, Vucevic, the quote-unquote big three for them, have a innate ability to kind of vulture each other's ceiling game to game. We have seen more ceilings appear more often between Levine and DeRozan. We have to look past last game, understanding that it did go to overtime in a game that just kind of got funky. But we have seen, for instance, the 60 fantasy point game for Levine is sandwiched by a 22, 34, 34. And then you look at DeRozan those nights, 36, 38, and then 71, 50. So DeRozan's ceiling usually doesn't coincide with Levine's ceiling. I think you guys have kind of heard me say this multiple times. Sometimes it will. Sometimes they can both get there and contribute. I think on a slate this big, I'm just going to take my chances with one or the other. So that's how I'll accomplish that in Fantasy Cruncher, put them both in the same group, at most one. But this is probably a game I'm pretty lukewarm on exposure-wise because of how many high-usage studs are involved. There's a lot of no-usage guys surrounded by a lot of high-usage guys. Patrick Williams, 4,200 on DraftKings. This is probably not the matchup where I want to get into him, but I have leaned on him in some spots with Javonte Green continuing to be out. And we've seen like a 30 here, 30 here. It's got to be the right spots, but I want to at least plant that nugget out there. So if you guys do catch Javonte in a favorable spot, or excuse me, Patrick Williams in a favorable spot with Javonte still out, you might be able to put that in your back pocket. What else we got? We got Blazers at the T-Wolves, another 8 p.m. game here. What's the total? 229 with a 1-point spread in favor of the T-Wolves. All right. News: Nurkic is questionable. So Nurkic, did Nurkic get hurt? Yeah, in that last game and come back after missing a game. Let's see what this the 411 is on that. Probable. All right. An illness. Exited the third quarter, only played 14 minutes, maybe played through to see if the score. Okay, so the blowout kept him off the court, but he's good to go now. And on the Timberwolves side, D-Russ didn't play that last game, but he's not on the injury report here. Naz Reid, I guess, would be somebody that does matter as far as projections go. So let's go to Minnesota. Questionable with back spasms. In his absence, Nathan Knight played 22 minutes, and Luka Garza played 14. I probably don't want to play either one of those guys on a slate this big, but that's good to know, I guess, maybe if you're attacking a turbo slate. Total for this one, anything? Oh, we did that, 229. Okay, so I think it's the usual spots here. Jeremy Grant had a pretty decent game that last outing. I think all the Blazers did. It was a lopsided game, like we said. Josh Hart, one of those 6K grunt work guys for me that I can lean on to give me a shot at a puncher's chance at 30-plus fantasy points. No warm and fuzzies, no tier 1s from the Blazer side, probably no tier 2s as well. If Josh Hart got into tier 2 ownership, cool. T-Wolf side, in the absence of Cat, Anthony Edwards is a guy that I could spin the wheel on and see some success here. But for the most part, pretty lukewarm. A lot of tier 3s. I think Edwards falls into tier 3. I got to figure out what to do with Kyle Anderson. I don't even think I've got him that wrong this year. But he is like a historically... I know his role is so different elsewhere. But man, I got to fix my brain to be more receptive to playing him. Because the other night, he was 50% owned in single entry. And I do think D-Russ's absence had something to do with it. But let's just look at Kyle Anderson this year in the absence of Karl-Anthony Towns. Usage rate is nothing. 0.85 fantasy point per minute. Let's take off D-Russ. Maybe Russ's impact was enough to make him go bananas. No, not really. So... a little bit of playing above average in that split, but not a ton of sample size anyway. I don't know. Anybody else agree or disagree? Playing Kyle Anderson is just not fun. But then when he comes with high ownership, it's like I just can't shake the thought of fading him. 43, 24, 14, 13, 24. You sunk my battleship. That's the Kyle Anderson experience. But I guess Denver without D-Russ was the spot where he decided to make cashing a little harder for me. But I'm lukewarm on him here. If everyone's healthy, I'm just getting an average projection there. No one's breaking my projections here. I actually don't get any 50s here, even at a Dame from this far out. We'll see if that changes. Pistons at the Warriors next up. We've got a 230.5 total with the Warriors favored anywhere from 6.5 to 7. Warriors coming off a fun double overtime game against the Atlanta Hawks. Jordan Poole, Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson had a massive night that night, 50-plus real points. We'll see if there's some run back from the field on him. Dante DiVincenzo, him and Anthony Lamb kind of ran a little pure with overtime. I'm probably more likely to go back to DiVincenzo with some with an open mind. Lamb, I do feel like I got a little bit lucky, but he's still going to project decently well. We look at the injury report. There's still no Jonathan Kuminga. It's over 18 minutes we're replacing. No Andrew Wiggins. It's over 30 minutes we're replacing. So it still makes sense to expect those guys to be rotational pieces. But we obviously also expect concentrated usage on the Jordan Poole, on Klay Thompson. I do think DiVincenzo can offer real points more than some of these other tertiary guys, so I'm willing to go back to him a little bit more often. But yeah, Kevin Looney was pretty high owned in that last slate on both FanDuel and DraftKings. On FanDuel, you can also play him as a power forward, so that helps quite a bit. 48 is kind of a ceiling outcome, 20 rebounds, 14 real points, but his per minute fantasy point production is pretty up there as well. So at 5,400, I still think he's going to project fairly well. I put him at 23 minutes, getting 26, 28. I think I could even get that minute projection up a little bit based on adjustments throughout the day. I don't make too many, or not too overthinking it too much the night before, right? On the Pistons side, they get Killian Hayes back from suspension. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? Or maybe the other way, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And then Marvin Bagley is going to be out. I don't want to say he broke his wrist or something. So that murkies up the front court a little bit more. Maybe we can elongate minute projections on Stewart and Duren. But it's just more of nothing. Alec Burks at 5.7 on FanDuel, 4.9 on DraftKings, looking for 25 to 35 fantasy point window. Makes it more volatile now that Killian Hayes is back. The Pistons have just been predictably unpredictable with their in-game adjustments. The guys I do rely on the most, Bojan Bogdanovic, and I didn't mind playing Killian Hayes for that stretch before the suspension. So there's a chance I get to some Killian Hayes exposure here tonight. 31, 34, 39 minutes in 3 of his last 4 full games before that Orlando schmoz, 42, 34, and 23. So there's your ranges of outcomes. But the 40 is a non-outlandish expectation. It's obviously a upper percentile for his range of outcomes, but it's going to hit often enough that I want some exposure to it. And then Bojan, a guy that leads the team in points per game. If you're going to keep up with the Warriors here, Bojan's probably going to have to contribute. So I don't mind using him as part of that 6K class of grunt work 30-point guys, 30 fantasy point guys. So I like him quite a bit. And then I don't really have a strong lean on anybody else in that front court. But I also wouldn't be surprised if we saw in-game adjustments by, is it Dwayne Casey, that maybe put Alec Burks on the court more, because Burks has shown a propensity historically to be a firecracker, and if one unit ain't working, we've seen the Pistons stick with the unit that is working. So there is probably a little bit of vulture potential for Alec Burks. It doesn't necessarily have to be for Killian Hayes. It can be for Jaden Ivey, but maybe I consider setting some rules for Pistons guard correlations where I don't want a lineup that falls with 2 of those guys. I just go for 1 of the 3, and I usually don't play Jaden Ivey as it is, but I do like the thought of Killian Hayes and Alec Burks in a vacuum. So there is that. Lakers hosting the Heat. What do we got for a total in this one? Anything? We got no total, but we got the Heat favored by 3.5. The Heat always have a laundry list of guys on the injury report. It's a little bit clearer today. I got just Gabe Vincent, Duncan Robinson, Caleb Martin listed with GTDs. So it puts a probable implication on Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, Kyle Lowry, Bam Adebayo. On the Lakers side, we've got Westbrook, I believe, is doubtful, and LeBron James, questionable but probable. Let's see. Let's pull up the Lakers. Man, I hate that this show is going to be in 2 parts. No, Westbrook's probable. Okay. Westbrook left foot soreness is probable, and LeBron James questionable. So, says it would be a shame if King James missed the chance to deliver a third straight 40-point performance, especially since he's facing his former team, blah, 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 blah. All right, cool. Lonnie Walker, also questionable. We saw him not play that last game, and Troy Brown Jr. got the start. And then the game before that, he didn't play, and Austin Reeves got the start. And then we all kind of played Austin Reeves in the next game when Lonnie Walker got ruled out. And Troy Brown, like we said, started. And then we all kind of got lucky, but we didn't want to admit it in front of our fellow man. But if you missed it, Austin Reeves had an incredible first half. And then that was the game that Westbrook went down and didn't come back, right? 11 minutes. So it created more opportunity for Austin Reeves. So maybe if Austin Reeves isn't in the starting lineup today and it is Troy Brown again, maybe we realize that we might have ran a little pure with the Austin Reeves results. Just kind of keep that in mind. Potentially news we won't have before 7 p.m. to take action on, and there's going to be plenty of value on the slate. But just something to think about. LeBron James has typically carried a probable tag, right? So him being officially questionable is something that is somewhat worrisome. If he were to be out, that would make Westbrook look more appealing. Would make Troy Brown look more appealing. So there's a lot of ways that can go. I guess Schroeder could pick up some slack. Would be pretty murky waters to have to navigate through. And I don't know that anyone would scream at me with a high level of confidence, but I guess it's worth doing a quick query on NBA Wowie. So we'll do LeBron. Or excuse me, we should do that backwards, huh? Let's take off LeBron and AD. I think the three-point spread kind of leads me to think LeBron is playing. But you know what happens when you assume. Westbrook, 32.5% usage rate without LeBron AD on the court. Thomas Bryant, 1.1 fantasy point per minute, 20% usage rate. It's just a pretty scattered spray and pray bag of results here. So that's what we're dealing with. Would rather have LeBron in here. 10.7K on DraftKings. He's coming in with a top 7 projection. That might alter in the morning as well. And then the Miami Heat, I think everyone's overpriced based on how consistent their availability has been. So 9K Jimmy, 9K Hero, almost 9K Bam Adebayo. While they all are in plus spots individually, it's hard to trust anyone more than the other. All of them averaging about the same amount of points per game, 21, right? 21. The whole team averaging over a steal per game too. That's crazy. So I wouldn't talk anyone off of those guys individually. I just wouldn't really have a hierarchy here. I think it just makes sense to like all of them. Yeah. All right, we've got one game left on the docket. I do want to thank PrizePicks for being a presenting sponsor of this show. If you guys are not on PrizePicks, today is going to be a good night to attack PrizePicks. So many games. The bigger the slate, the more I do like playing on PrizePicks because there's so many ways to reward the research that we're doing already, you know? If you're not on PrizePicks, you sign up using code GUNDACKER. There'll be a link in the pinned comment below where you can just use that link. They will double your first deposit up to $100, which is lit. And they also support the show, support the channel, so it helps keep the content, most of the content free. So check them out. Tell them I sent you. And then if you hang around this afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, we'll do another breakdown stream. Hopefully we'll walk away with a couple of picks that we can lean on PrizePicks as well. And I'll also post them in the free Discord. A link to that's in the description below. And then we'll also have them in the RunDFS.com VIP Discord. And then we'll talk about that at nauseum, at least, in the pre-lock voice chat. So shout out to PrizePicks for being an incredible partner. What up, Dripster? Hit for 1.6K and use one of your picks. Let's go. What pick was it? You talking about for last night's slate? Thinking back on the results, I was pretty high on Malik Beasley last night. I think that was one of the reasons why I did so well at the end of the night. And then, of course, some bonus and them were good. Atlanta Hawks at the Sacramento Kings main event tonight. Clint Capella is listed as out. That's about the only piece of news here. Last night, Kevin Huerter and Malik Monk carried a questionable tag. Both of them played. Kind of the Iron Men of that team. I would imagine this has one of the highest totals on the slate. 244. Good Lord. That's massive with a 1.5 point spread. So whatever you can get from this game, let's get it. Atlanta Hawks have been chilling on the West Coast. Actually, Atlanta Hawks have done less travel here than the Kings. Kings are technically on a back-to-back coming from altitude to out, and the Hawks have been chilling in Golden State, right, from that Golden State game. So the Hawks are the more rested team here. Everyone in this game makes a lot of sense. Sabonis is going to project extremely well. De'Aaron Fox is going to project extremely well. John Collins, DeJounte Murray, Trae Young, all these guys are at attackable price points. I think we maybe throttle the overlap between Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, but everything here is something that we like. And then in the continued absence of Clint Capella, makes sense to like a Kongwu projecting for over 30. So there's nothing here that I'm not going to like. 4,600 on Malik Monk looks like a fun price point as well. Do we have rotational information from Sacramento last game? You hit the 6-pick flex. Let's go. I don't even think I've done a 6-pick yet, but maybe tomorrow I'll try and put one together. I have a tendency to pick my battles. Like I don't bet stuff just to bet stuff. I try to find stuff I actually like. Sometimes I'll pull like the EV stuff, right? Bet on EV. Like last night, I think I took a hockey prop that was EV and it kind of missed on me. But for the most part, I think I'm fine since I do so much research on the slate. I just find stuff that I like, and I think we'll be able to find some tomorrow. So maybe I'll try and do 6. But usually I'll have four picks I like a lot, and then I just rotate them with two pick powers and then a couple of full slots. What's the best pick when using PrizePicks? 5's just kind of risky. 100 for 1,000. When you get one wrong, you get nothing. Is that 5? I thought, didn't they force 5 picks flexes as well? I don't think there is a best, but I do think if you have a decent enough bankroll, my favorite way to do a PrizePicks is to rotate the 2-pick powers, and then all the stuff that I have exposure to, I can get on cards together. So does that make sense? Let's say I have 4 picks that I like. I'll rotate all 4 of those picks in 2s on top of also running the 4s. So kind of like a round robin situation where I'm just hedging down. That does get annoying sometimes because you have to manually enter each card, and then sometimes the lines move in the middle of it, just kind of jacks up the whole thing. But that's how I do it. What were we looking at for Sacramento? Leaving Sacramento. Fox 35. All right. Atlanta Hawks. One more thing. Where are the Hawks at on points in the paint allowed? Top 5-ish, and I think it's fair to assume that goes down per game without Clint Capella. Might be another De'Aaron Fox scoring spot. Fox looking really good at 8,500, I gotta say. 40 plus fantasy points. 54 against Utah last night. Looking really, really good. 22 shots, only 5 of them from behind the arc. So, yeah, I'm going to like De'Aaron Fox quite a bit again. Anyway, that's our first look. If you guys... Do I leave the first video up still? I don't know. Probably. Right? I don't know. That's our first look. I'll be back live in the afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central. Remember, we did launch the All-Star Break Pass yesterday. $3.99 gets you in, $100 credit towards Fantasy Cruncher as well. They get you locked up until July 11th, I believe, for the MLB All-Star Break. So it's going to wrap up all of NBA, the rest of football playoffs, and the first half of the baseball season. And if you guys are newer to DFS or this space, baseball's pretty ridiculous. But I also think that I'm pretty well known for the baseball process and the product that I put out for baseball. So if you're into DFS, baseball is a huge learning curve, but I feel like I do a pretty good job at holding your hand and getting you introduced into it. So check that out. We don't need to talk too much baseball because we still got a couple months, but maybe for the World Baseball Classic, we'll have some stuff out. I'm on Twitter, twitter.com/Gundacker. I appreciate you guys ending your night or starting your morning with me. We'll be back this afternoon, man. I hope you guys have a great day. Always tell somebody you love them. I love you. Good luck. God bless. And go win some money.